stand by in the studio. Seconds. 20 seconds. Yes, yes.
Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudis. Welcome to DCTV's series on the network of global corporate control that is coming to you live today from DCTV's studios. Today's program is going to focus on our gift of love in the global debt facility. For new listeners, the network of global corporate control is a secret company that thinks it's owned the world because it's able to print all the paper money it wants for free, and then has the gall to charge us interest on country debt in a big scam. The network of global corporate control, as we have learned in earlier sessions, is trying to bring down the world in a crash of paper currencies and another dark ages, just like it did in the 300s. We've been describing the fight between the network of global corporate control and the Coalition for the Rule of Law, which consists of the BRICS, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, the G77, which is 134 developing countries, and the growing number of people who see through this scam. A power transition model from the Department of Defense that uses game theory modeling is predicting that the Coalition for the Rule of Law will win with 90 to 95% likelihood. 2 weeks ago, we discussed the minutes of the meeting at the Philippines Central Bank on January 3, 1949. The minutes were signed by Jose Rizal, who you remember was the Black Pope, that is, the Superior General of the Society of Jesus. He signed it as the bailor. That is a fancy legal term, which means that he was the owner of the assets that were placed in trust. The signatories included his lawyer, Ferdinand Marcos, Harry Truman, who was then the President of the United States, Dwight Eisenhower, who was then the commander of the Army, and members of the Philippines Central Bank, as well as the ambassador of the Pacific Union. This trust contains the world's wealth. It has 1,617,000 metric tons of gold, 1 million metric tons of platinum, 1 million metric tons of diamonds. It has artwork. It has other treasure. The minutes of the meeting say that this trust is governed by the bilateral Minesfield Breakthrough Successor Agreement. I have been discussing this agreement. It puts the 188 ministers of finance and development of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund in charge. They are to make sure that the world's wealth benefits humanity. They were supposed to start doing this in 2005, but we've gotten around to it now. I have a link which I'm going to be placing for the minutes so that you can see this yourself. I published the teleprompter before the broadcast because we have had interference from the network of global corporate control. They like to take down the live streaming on the internet. The most important words in the minutes are proclamation and declaration of the gift of love. I found out that I'm the overseer mandate trustee of the Global Debt Facility from Tiburcio Villamor Marcos. He is Ferdinand Marcos's son. On the 2nd of December, Tiburcio Villamor Marcos asked me to help him withdraw the assets from the global debt facility. This was after I refused on a scheme that he presented in June. What I told Tiburcio Marcos was that I was not going to do anything without the Board of Governors approving it, and that each time there was a withdrawal from the global debt facility, this would be with their express approval. I reminded the Board of Governors about TVM's attempt to leave the Board of Governors out of the equation, and about how I invalidated the attempt of the International Court of Justice and the CIA to steal the world's gold. And you can see the documentation on that also in a link to the teleprompter. I emailed all of the embassies in Japan and all of the missions in New York, and I posted this on my social media. What was my email about? I was preventing the Vatican's agent, Christine Lagarde, from stealing humanity's assets in the global debt facility. You would think this kind of thing was newsworthy, wouldn't you? You have not heard a peep from the media about this. But there are stories in the media that are very connected to this event. I would like to take back what I said about the legal profession. This based on the death of Antonin Scalia. Although it's only conjecture, I believe that Justice Scalia was murdered to prevent him from disclosing the fact that the United States is secretly being governed by martial law. Here are the facts. On the 3rd of February, I posted a very pointed tweet about, this was 10 days before the sudden death of Justice Scalia. I was criticizing him for refusing to tell the American people that the United States is governed by martial law. And you can see what I tweeted, and many, many millions of people have seen that tweet. I also mentioned the corruption in the Supreme Court, and I posted a picture of Justices Antonin Scalia and Clarence Thomas during the DCTV broadcast on the 9th of December. And that broadcast is now up on my YouTube. On the 10th of February, I told the American Bar Association that lawyers are too corrupt to regulate the legal profession anymore, and that there probably shouldn't be a legal profession. And the list of the attorneys that I wrote, the officers, the president of the American Bar Association, you can see, and none of them got back to me on this, either to say that what I had said was incorrect, just absolutely nothing. I had also been in touch with the DC Bar and their publication, The Lawyers. In January, their latest issue was saying that the Constitution of 1789 is in effect when it is not. There is an article in the Constitution of 1789 which is the way to measure whether we, the people, have given our consent to the way that we are being governed. When 2/3 of the state legislatures applied to the United States Congress for an amendment to the Constitution, there is supposed to be a convention to propose amendments. The state of Wisconsin believed that this threshold was passed in 1929, and you can see the letter that they wrote to the U.S. Congress. I have a link in the teleprompter. The United States Congress has refused to do its duty under the Constitution to convene a constitutional convention. Instead, Congress has declared a state of emergency behind closed doors. This is corruption, because the United States Congress has refused to convene the convention, and because the United States Congress and the legal profession have refused to admit that the U.S. Congress has been extending a secret state of emergency to justify martial law, the World Bank Board of Governors has declared the United States to be in interregnum. That means its government is illegitimate. On February 10th, I indicted the entire legal profession for covering this fact up. And this is what Justice Scalia said in his opinion about Article 5 on the United States Constitution in 1979, and the circumstances surrounding Justice Scalia's death, it can't be ruled out that Justice Scalia was murdered. And I'd like to read what Justice Scalia said. These are the words of Justice Scalia. The founders inserted this alternative method of obtaining constitutional amendments because they knew the Congress would be unwilling to give attention to many issues the people are concerned with, particularly those involving restrictions on the federal government's own power. The founders foresaw that, and they provided the convention as a remedy, if the only way to get that convention is to take this minimal risk, and the risk he was referring to was that there might be a runaway constitutional convention, then it is a reasonable one. The network of global corporate control is having a very hard time with these truths. This morning, when I went to look in my computer for the teleprompter, I found that my computer had been hacked, and I had to rewrite what I wrote for the teleprompter. And you can see, if you look at my social media, the two versions. It's not an unusual thing for somebody to go into my computer and hack it and delete things. This is what happened when I was suing the World Bank, and I had a brief that was due the following day. Somebody went in and deleted the brief. Fortunately, I had put an earlier version, and when you write a brief in court, you have a lot of quotes. You can't just write it again quickly. I was going to miss the deadline, but I managed to find an earlier version. And when you have to rewrite something and you know what you're going to say, they're actually doing you a favor. So I'd like to take an informal poll this evening when I post this segment on the internet. I usually do that on YouTube. When I post this, I'd like people to tell me which version of the teleprompter you prefer, whether it's the longer, more detailed version or the one that's to the very point. Let's talk about the way forward. The people on this planet know that there is gold that belongs to them. They know that the network of global corporate control is bankrupt and is in receivership. They also know that the Vatican's document that Christine Lagarde signed without any authority is invalid. This means that we are going to get our gold. Do you hear me on this planet? We are home free. How are we going to accomplish the global currency reset? This is not a problem because we know where we are and we know what we're entitled to. Let's talk about the United States military. In 2014, I went to Japan and I spoke to the authorities in Japan. I was assisted by a Japanese journalist, and that journalist told the people in Japan that I could be trusted, and they trusted her. And what I said to the people in Japan was that the United States military was going to stand strong. It was not going to be surrendering unilaterally because of the weakness of the Federal Reserve note. Quantitative easing, that is a technical word that the Federal Reserve cooked up so that we would fall asleep at the switch and we would allow them to degrade our currency. The network of global corporate control has been with us for a very, very long time. This is the same trick that they pulled in the 300s, just before the Dark Ages. That was when they took all of the metal out of the denarius. After a period of time, people refused to use those degraded coins, and there was no way to trade. Trade came to a total standstill. People starved. There was pestilence. And this is what the network of global corporate control has in mind for the US dollar. That's not going to happen because we know that that gold belongs to us. That is the very same gold that John F. Kennedy signed in the Green-Hilton Agreement 8 days before he was murdered. That's the same gold that Ferdinand Marcos and Ronald Reagan agreed to. There are treasury dollars that were printed and are now on deposit in the Union Bank of Switzerland. I haven't heard back from the Swiss embassy whether we're going to be given these treasury dollars. And in the event that they don't, I can tell you that we have another plan. And that plan is to use the loyal people in the military who we are contacting. I'm contacting them through Kay Griggs, who is a very good friend of Pete, and I'm trying to remember Pete's name. What frequently happens to me during these broadcasts is there are ways of disrupting people's thought process through extremely low frequencies, and I've learned to function through that. I'm probably losing his name for that very reason. But in any event, you'll see that on the teleprompter. And he was a whistleblower at the Mint. And he knows who has the capabilities. And we're going to print the treasury dollars ourselves if we have to. We're entitled to get the treasury dollars that have already been printed. They're uncut. But we have no way of forcing the Swiss to do what they're required to do. Many of the people that write in say that although we're right on the law, that we can't rely on the network of global corporate control to do what is legally required. And that's exactly what happened with Christine Lagarde. She was not reappointed because the Board of Governors delegated to me the right to speak for them on matters concerning the global debt facility, and because the representatives of the United States on the Board of Executive Directors were breaking the Articles of Agreement, we told them that they had no right to express the vote of the United States anymore. So Christine Lagarde was fired. She was fired for signing an agreement to give back the world's gold to the Vatican. This was not authorized. We voided that agreement, and then we fired her for doing that. She had no authority. And so to say that she was reappointed days after she was fired, well, I can tell you, and I told Christine Lagarde directly on a tweet that she is fired no matter what the press says, because the press is owned not by the network of global corporate control, because the network of global corporate control is insolvent. We have filed financing statements, and they are going to be wound down. Now, there are many people who are going to be listening to the news, and it's going to be very difficult for many people who have not been following what's been going on here. And that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about next week, how to reach out to the people who don't know the difference between the fake pretend world that the network of global corporate control is trying to get people to fall into, the trap that they're setting for us. They've set a trap, and we're not going into that trap. And the United States military is not surrendering unilaterally through a crash of the Federal Reserve note. And the real test is going to be whether people can reach out to the ones who are just paying attention to the mainstream media to prevent them from panicking and to prevent them from believing the lies that they're going to be told. This is going to be it's going to be a test. And the reason why I'm so confident that we are going to win this test is because of the strength that humanity has. We'll be talking about this in great length during the global currency reset. You can read from Betsy Banfield Malloy what powers we have. I'd like to show this clip of an 84-year-old man who demonstrates the Chinese art of, and I'm sure I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, Qigong. If you'll roll that tape, please.
导演部。
这还只是武汉奇人邱福义所练奇功的一小部分，而他
今年84。
别急，这只是前戏，接下来的更精彩。
上次你这是干嘛呢？把这瓶子打破。
接下来是隔空移物。
20 seconds left in the video.
Ah.
这也太神了。
Hello, hello. Stand by.
Why do you think that love is centered in the heart, which appears to be a muscle pumping blood? There's sometimes talk about a dichotomy of the heart and mind, where the heart has emotions and desires, and the mind has intellect. But the heart is more than just a physical pump, and humanity should not be limited to just the physical plane. On Valentine's Day, Betsy wrote about the collective unconscious. When you talk about something, you go to the heart of the matter. The heart is identified with the very soul of the individual. Tantra Yoga teaches that the heart of man and the heart of the world are a single heart. I'm looking now for, there it is. I'm looking for the chart of the psyche. You see that there's the crown, and this is supported by knowledge, and the self, and then the ego, and then the central nervous system. But there's also the intellect, which is understanding, and there's emotion and judgment, and there's the voluntary processes. But on the other side, there is a connection between ourselves and what is called the collective unconscious. There's inner intellect, there's inner emotion, and there's also instinctive processes. We're going to be learning in the Global Currency Reset that humanity is actually all interconnected. We're all one. And that's one of the reasons why I'm very optimistic that we're going to be able to function in a way that's not chaotic and that's systematic, and that we're going to care for one another. There's been a lot of controversy about what to do about the elite that have been deliberately withholding our wealth from us. And it's very important that we not rush to judgment. I've been criticized because I've been saying very, very categorically that we're not going to be punishing and throwing people in jail. And the reason for that is because we will be stuck. We will not have a global currency reset. We will not be able to transition if we're planning on punishing the elite. Because there are so many, the corruption is so deep that we have got to be collaborative. I have shown in earlier sessions a picture of how a sailboat comes about, and that you have got to switch to the other side when you tack. Otherwise, you capsize. And it's very clear that humanity, if we insist on the idea that we're going to be punishing the elite, we will capsize. We will not have humanity anymore. That's just the way it is. People don't have to take my word for it. They can discuss it among themselves. That's what we've been doing. We've been discussing this for a long time. And everything that we're doing, we do collaborate. The best way to collaborate is to send me an email and to also post a discussion either on my social media or on the YouTube. And we'll find other fora if they're necessary. But we are all each other's keeper. We are all interconnected, and we are all going to care for one another. And as we learn how to function as a cohesive group, and this does not mean that we're giving up our sovereign nations. Our nations are remaining sovereign. They're actually going to be sovereign in a way that they hadn't been sovereign before because of what the network of global corporate control has done. The nations of the world have been subjected to state capture, some of them more than others. The United States has been ruled by this network through corruption, and we're going to have to work very hard to alleviate that. I'm thinking now about how to wind down the program. It's been a very difficult program to prepare for, not just because of the interference, but also because of the special role that I'm trying to play. I'm trying to be transparent and to communicate everything that's going on the social media. I don't pull any punches. People have seen that when there's a problem, I let people know that there's a problem. We are very much all in this together. This is a group effort, and we are going to manage to have a peaceful transition. We're going to get rid of the corruption, and we're going to be caring for one another. I'd like to thank you for listening to this segment of the Network of Global Corporate Control. And I'm being told that we've actually got a couple more minutes. It's a learning curve. It's a very steep learning curve to have to be the overseer mandate trustee. And you'll have to bear with me as I learn. Also in the global currency reset, we have not been given the opportunity to prepare for this the way I wanted to. And we're going to have to find out whether we can communicate with each other in a way that makes this peaceful. I think it should be. The Global Debt Facility was established by Ferdinand Marcos and Jose Rizal for this very day. We are now launched on the global currency reset. We are going to be reclaiming the world's wealth. It's a wonderful opportunity for us. I also today reached out to the two men who are going to have to work with us. One of them is the Black Pope, that's Adolfo Nicolas. The other is the Gray Pope, Pepe Orsini. They are in charge. They're above the White Pope. And I would also encourage all of you to get in touch with these men, because we are all in this together. They're in this as much as we are. We're all interconnected. I'm smiling because I'm thinking about the gift of love that we got from Jose Rizal. It's very meaningful that we were able to accept this gift from him. It's a wonderful opportunity that we have. I hope we're able to grow and reach out to each other and care for each other during this reset. It's going to be a fundamental change in how we interact with each other. I hope that it's going to be governed by love. Until next week, I'm your host, Karen Hudis.